So hello guys, good morning. So in today's session, we'll try to understand what is ABAP, how ABAP is going to be used in SAP development or SAP ERP application developments. Here you can see, hey guys, can you mute? Okay, so here you can see ABAP slash 4. It's not only ABAP, ABAP slash 4. 4 means generation of the programming language. Which generation of the programming language is ABAP? Fourth generation. So that's why there is a 4 here. There are different generations of the programming languages. So I'll explain in detail. So ABAP is a fourth generation programming language. And what is the abbreviation of the ABAP? Advanced Business Application Programming. Okay. So Advanced Business Application Programming, and ABAP is a fourth generation programming language. So I'll give you more details on the generations of the programming languages. So when computer is invented, to run the computer or to run any applications on the computer, there should be some software application, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
What we can do with a empty computer with just hardware? Computer is just a hardware, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
To run any applications in that hardware, we need some software applications, right?
Yes, sir.
So when it is initially invented, so what is the code? What is the code or what is the program that mission can understand is binary, means only
Zero
zeros
slow.
and ones. Okay, that is the code which that mission can understand. So in the first generation of the programming, so what is the code we have used? Mission language, zeros and ones.
Once.
So first generation language uses mission language. We call this programming language as there are two levels of languages: low level language, high level language, right? So we call this first generation programming language as a low level language because it is mission dependent, and also it is very difficult to understand. Can you understand what is if I give you some combination of zeros and ones? So is it easy to understand what is that? What is the meaning of it?
No, sir.
It is very difficult to understand. Just like there is some code here like this. If someone asks you what is the meaning of this, sorry, only zeros and ones. We don't know, right? It is very difficult. The person who has expertise in this combination, in this mission language combinations, in this binary language only, they can understand this, right? But what is the language that computer understands? Only
Oh, zeros
binary
and ones.
language. The instructions to the computer should be given in the form of binary language. That's why, see, actually binary language very faster than the any other languages, because we are directly giving the instructions to the mission in the language which it can understands, right? There is no translation required, right? If you are giving these binary instructions to the computer, even now all the missions will understand only binary language, right? But we don't know that because we have other tools like compilers, interpreters. We type something in the general keywords like delete, insert, update, right? In background, those instructions will be converted into which language?
Binary
Binary.
Binary language.
But we are not aware of it. That will happen in the background, okay? To make it easy, to make the programming easy, like generation by generation, right? Additional features are introduced to make the programming easy, right? Easy to understand, easy to implement, right? Contain zeros and ones. This is called which type of language?
Binary language.
Yeah, binary
I
language or
can
mission language.
I can admit.
Mission language. So the computer can understand only binary language. So by using binary language, you can directly give input to the computer. There is no translator required. Okay, that is the reason. So binary languages are faster. So system can respond immediately. So, but what is the disadvantage?
It is difficult to
Yeah,
understand.
difficult to learn. Difficult to learn. If there is any error in the programming, it is very difficult to find it where it is not, where that error is coming from, why that error is rising. It is very difficult to understand. Okay, so this is a low level language. Okay, but here we don't need any compilers or interpreters. We can directly give the instructions to system. Okay, second generation language which are introduced after first generation programming, right? second generation programming languages also low level languages, but a bit better than mission language in terms of readability. In terms of readability, here we use a set of symbols. Here we use set of symbols to provide the instructions to the computer. Okay, not zeros and ones. Okay, but still it is not a developer friendly language. Okay, still it is not a developer friendly language. That's why we called second generation language is also low level language. Okay, so it contains set of symbols that includes letters and some special characters and numbers to provide a specific instructions to the computer. But for this assembly language, we call this as assembly language. This is called the so why it is called as assembly language? Because
But
we are not providing the instructions in mission language, right? We are providing the instructions in the form of some symbols and combination of letters, right? But can the mission understand those?
no,
No. Mission or computer can understand only mission language, that is binary codes,
binary.
basic ones, right? But here we use assembler, a special application called assembler. What is the purpose of assembler? Convert the,
Assembly language into machine language.
yes. So you don't, as a developer, you don't need to worry about mission language. The assembler will take care of it. It will convert the assembly language instructions into mission language. Okay. So the advantages over first generation, it is easy to understand when you compare with the mission language. It is easy to understand, right? And the dependency wise, we need a special thing called assembler. Without that assembler, you cannot execute second level, maybe this assembly language. Okay. So there are few assembly languages like which we don't use actually. LDAX, STAX. These are few assembly language program examples, right? So here, what is the dependency to run the second generation programming language or assembly language?
Assembler.
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 Yes. Sorry. So third generation languages are also called procedural programming languages. Why we call this as procedural programming languages? So these are close to the human language. These are similar to the human language, but not exactly same, but humans can read it. But we have better readability in third generation programming languages, and you can easily, as a developer, you can easily learn the programming and you can easily implement the applications using that programming languages, because it is not difficult to understand. It is close to the human understandable statements, right? So example for third generation programming languages are C. How many of you know C? COBOL. So these are the examples for third generation programming languages. Here we use English keywords, which are easily understandable for the humans. Okay. So this is called, so third generation programming languages are high level programming languages. First generation and second generation are
Low level.
Low level
low level
languages.
programming languages. Third generation
High level.
is a
High
high
level.
level
High level
programming
programming
language.
language.
But what about the hardware? Can they understand this high level programming language statements which are in English? No. We need
No,
a
sir.
special thing called
Compilers.
compiler
An
and
interpreter.
Interpreter.
without the compiler and interpreter, third generation languages is not going to work. Okay. So what is the functionality of these compilers and interpreters?
Interpreter execute the code line by line, but the compiler execute the code at a time, total code at a time.
Yes. So it will execute the total code at a time, but that is the functionality. But what is the main purpose of these compilers and interpreters?
To convert the source code into the binary code.
Yes, yes. Okay. So without using compilers, we cannot execute third generation programming languages. Simply, it will translate high level programming languages. Let me give maybe mission. Simply mission language. So the compiler translate high level programming statements into mission language. Okay. Interpreter also will do the same, but it will execute line
line
by
by
line.
line.
Okay. So either we can use compilers or the difference is compiler translate everything at once. The interpreter will translate line by line. That is the difference. Okay. Without this, the third generation programming languages are not going to be executed. Okay. But here there is a dependency. We cannot use a common compiler for all third generation programming languages. There are different programming languages introduced in third generation programming languages like C, COBOL, Fortran. All these are third generation programming languages. But the assembler is required for a separate assembler, sorry, not assembler, a separate compiler is required for each programming language. We cannot use a common compiler for all the programming languages. And then fourth generation programming languages. So fourth generation languages, we call it as non-procedural languages. So these are more flexible, more easy to understand. Okay. Fourth generation programming languages are very flexible to implement and very easy to understand because it is very close to the human language statements. For example, select, for example, delete, insert, update, right? Stop, exit. These are all general words, right? General words which we use in our real life, right? These statements. So we are going to use same similar statements in the programming to write the programs. So it is very easy to understand, right? So it is very easy to learn. So this fourth generation programming language is also high level, high level programming languages. Okay. So these are very easy to understand. So what is ABAP?
Fourth generation.
ABAP is a fourth
Fourth
generation
generation.
programming language. It contains human readable sentences, maybe syntaxes, statements, right? So we don't use a complex keywords or anything in the programming. So it is very easy to learn and very easy to understand. We have better readability in the fourth generation programming languages than third generation programming languages. Okay. Few examples. SQL is a fourth generation programming language which we use to read the data from database. We use SQL syntaxes, SQL statements. So SQL is a fourth generation programming language. If you observe SQL syntax, it contains some human readable statements like select, insert, alter, delete, update, like that, right? And
Sir,
other one,
Python?
so yeah, Python is also fourth generation. If you observe Python, you can observe very human readable statements, right? It's not very difficult to understand. Statements are very simple, right?
Java?
Java, it comes under third generation.
Okay, sir.
C, C++, Java. And we have fifth generation programming languages. Here actually you don't need to write any code. These are low code, low code programming languages where you can just drag and drop something and it will automatically generate programming. Okay. But the code which that automatically going to generate is very complex. It is very difficult to understand. But developer doesn't need to write any code. Maybe he needs to write only minimum code. The maximum, most of the code will be generated by the programming, that application itself by using some drag and drop options. Okay. So as a programmer, as a developer, you don't need to have in-depth knowledge on that coding, right? You need to have the understanding of the user interface. What are the options available in the user interface, and what is the, like for example, you need to generate one button, a code for a button. So you don't need to write the code to generate the button. So you can just drag and drop from the options available. Okay. So fifth generation is also a high level programming language. So there are some artificial intelligence programming languages, and all these things will comes under high level programming languages. There's some programming
Sir,
called, yes,
so no code tools will come under fifth generation, sir.
yes, low code, yes.
Okay.
So ABAP comes under which generation programming language?
Fourth
Fourth
generation.
Fourth
generation.
generation programming language, because it contains statements which are close to the human language. You can easily understand. So let me, please go on. We have two levels. low level and high level. So in low level, we have first generation,
Second generation.
second generation. See, even now we have a fifth generation programming languages, right? But still we are using, but in some industries they still use these mission language and assembly languages. For example, to design any hardwares, right? They don't use these third generations or fourth generation. They use assembly languages because they're very faster in working in those. For example, any kitchen appliances, right? Or any kitchen appliances or any um, hardware components, they still use assembly languages. I don't know, embedded programming comes under which generation? Anyone know embedded programming?
So it's a third generation, sir, embedded programming.
Okay. Okay. This is a simple form of generations of the programming languages. So low level, first and second generation, high level, third, fourth, and fifth generations. ABAP is a fourth generation programming language. That's why we use the /4 in the ABAP. Okay. Is everyone clear?
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we are going to learn SAP ABAP, which is a fourth generation programming language, which contains statements close to the human language in English statements. Okay. So let me introduce to SAP screen or SAP applications, how we can access SAP and how can we write or how can we implement our programming, everything. So to do that, we are using a remote desktop server, or we can also install in your computer that SAP GUI, which we need to use to access SAP. So for this training, we are going to use a remote desktop connection. We are connecting a different computer which contains that SAP installations, and we are going to work in that computer. Okay, for that we are using remote desktop connection. For that we can use mstsc in the run command, or you can also search for remote desktop connection. Okay. Okay, you need to enter the IP address and username and password. Click on connect. So we are connecting a external system. Okay, by using remote desktop connection. So in this system, they have maintained all the SAP related installations and servers. That's why we don't need to install anything in your personal laptop or system. Okay, you just need to have internet connection. Now, how to access SAP? To write any C programming, we need a special what do we call software, right? Turbo C, Turbo C or something we used to install to learn C or C++. That is the tool or environment which provides options to write the programming, right? So here in SAP, we have a SAP logon, SAP GUI to access the SAP. We call it as SAP GUI. Double click on this. If you are not able to find here, you can go to the start menu and search for this SAP logon. You can find it, this one, right? So this is the SAP logon pad. Here in this SAP logon pad, we need to configure the systems which we need to have, which we need to log in. For example, here there are two systems already configured. One is ECC and another one is S4 HANA 2022 version. By going through the description, you can understand that, right? I'll show you technically how can you find what is ECC and what is S4 HANA. But here, by going through the description, you can understand one is the ECC system and another one is S4 HANA 2022 system. We are going to use both because we should be able to understand the ECC version of the programming and the S4 HANA environment, right? Mostly we are going to write in S4 HANA, but we are going to use ECC also sometimes. Okay, clear? The prerequisite to use SAP is you need a SAP logon pad that should be installed in your system or in the server which you are accessing. So this is called SAP GUI. Now, to open the server, first we need to configure here. First we need to configure the system here. You don't need to worry about it. Basis administrators or basis consultants will provide you these details, right? You don't need to worry about it. Once it is configured, just double click on it. Double click on the system. So it will open this login screen. When you double click on the server, it will open this login screen. Now, what are the options available here? We have client number, user ID, password, and language. So ignore client number for now. I'll explain in detail later because I don't want to confuse you. So ignore client number for now. These two are familiar, right, for you? User ID and password. It is very common, right? Wherever we need to log in anything, we need to enter user ID and password, right? Here also, you should have access to system. So basis consultants should create access for you, a user ID and password. Is everyone clear on this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now,
Sir.
there is another option called login language. What is the use of this? Why we need to provide the language? Usually, all the applications are in English only, right?
Yes.
If you go to China, if you go to China and try to access any application, their own native applications, which language you can find in those applications? They're all in
In their local
Chinese.
languages.
Chinese, because in China they don't use English like how we use here. If you go to Japan, all their applications, all their softwares, and everything will be their
Japanese.
their daily regular all the uh, things will be happened in their native languages, Japanese language, not in English, right? For example, if this SAP is designed only for English language, only to display data in English language, can Chinese or Japanese or Germans they can use it or not? It is very difficult for them, right, to use it because in their daily life they use their native language for the communication, for the business purpose, and everything, right? So that's why SAP is designed to support multiple languages, right? So if you enter EN, it will display all the data and options in English language. If you go for a different language, if you, it is just a keyword. For example, for Japanese, it is JP. If you enter JP, it will log in Japanese language, and all the options will be displayed in Japanese language, so that Japanese users can easily use this SAP system. Okay, so SAP provides multiple languages support. Have you guys observed browsers, Chrome browser? At the end, you can select the language, right? At the bottom of the browser, you can find language options. If you select a different language, it will change up all the options into that specific language. Yes or no? This is also similar. SAP supports multiple languages. Let's try login. So we need a user ID for that. For now, this is the user ID, and we need to have a password. Enter the password and click on enter. Enter the user ID, password, and click on enter, and provide your language preference. EN. I'm able to log in into the SAP server. All the options are displaying in English language, right? Now let me try with a different language. Let me log in into a different language using same user ID and password. Before that, that should be configured in the system. Let me try this. Japanese is not configured. DE, let's try German. German is configured. So if you observe here, the options are not in English, right? All the options are in German language, right? Let me log in English. So this is called SAP initial screen. This is called SAP initial screen. From here, you can navigate to different SAP applications. So there are two types of activities here: development activities and functional configurations. Development activities and functional configurations. For development activities, we have separate applications. For functional configurations, we have separate applications. So depends on your role in the project, you are going to access specific applications. How can you access any application in SAP? How can you access any application in SAP? How can you access Gmail? How can you guys access Gmail?
Just simply log in into
By
the
User
by
ID and password.
web in the web browser.
first before going to login, you should first open the Gmail, right? You are going to type gmail.com, right? So it's going to open the Gmail application in the browser, right? Similarly, here to open any application, what we need to use, we need a transaction code. We call that as transaction code. Each application will have a specific transaction code. Specific transaction code. For example, there are specific transaction codes for development activities. There are specific transaction codes for functional activities, functional configurations used by functional consultants, right? For example, here in the command prompt, you can enter the transaction code. And the thing is, you need to remember these transaction codes. Okay, you need to remember these transaction codes. Which transaction code we are going to use for? What is the transaction code we are going to use for to open a specific application? That you need to remember. Okay, when you have system interaction, right? When you practice on the daily basis, right, you can easily remember these transaction codes. Okay. For example, to write any program in ABAP, we have a transaction code called SC38. So you need to enter that specific transaction code and click on enter. It will open that application. Okay. What is the transaction code I've entered? SC38. So what is the use of SC38? What is this ABAP editor? What is this? ABAP
ABAP editor.
editor. Here you can write programs. Here you can write programs by using this ABAP editor, or you can change the existing programs. You can write new programs or change the existing programs. Similarly, we have many other different transaction codes, right? So going forward, we are going to work on each transaction code and what is the functionality of the transaction code and what are the different applications we are going to create, so we can observe. So currently, in which transaction code I am in? SC38.
SE38.
You need to go back to the initial screen. Click on back.
Back.
You can go back to the initial screen, or let me go to the transaction code again, SC38. I need to open another transaction code. Do we need to close it? Do we need to close the current transaction code? No. Simply go to the command prompt, type /o/o SC11. This is another transaction code which we use to access database tables. We call it as data dictionary. Here we can access the database tables. The transaction code is SC11. What did I do? I used /o before the transaction code. Why? Because
It's a long.
I'm already in one transaction code SC38. I want to keep as it is. I want to keep this as it is, and I want to open another transaction code in the another session. Right? Now we have two sessions. One is for program and another one is for data dictionary, table access. Right? Similarly, you can access multiple transaction codes using /o. Just like your tabs in the browser. You can open multiple tabs, right, in the same browser. For that, what is the option we need to use? /o. So it will keep the current transaction as it is, current screen as it is, and it will open a new screen. Okay, clear?
Yes, sir.
Now we have another option, /n SC38. I'm opening this. Now what this will do? What is the difference between /n and /o? /n will terminate current transaction code, will close the current transaction code and opens the new transaction
New
code.
tab.
It will close the current one and open the new transaction code. When you use /n, it won't keep the current transaction code. Okay, that is the difference between /n and /o. Clear? So like that you can open multiple sessions, right? So SC11 is to access the database tables. We call it as ABAP data dictionary. And SC38 is ABAP editor where we can write the programs. Okay. Similarly, there are few other transaction codes for different uh, purpose. So we are going to start from the basics and we are going to learn the all other transaction codes. Okay. So this is where you are going to implement your programmings, applications, or anything. Now I'll show you the difference between ECC and S4 HANA. Now in which server we are in?
Is for HANA.
S4 HANA, right? How can you find what is the database of it? What is the backend database of it? What is the backend database of this server? Go to, in the initial screen, go to system and status. Here you can see who is the current client and what is the current user logged in, right? When it is previously logged in, and what is the current system time, right? When you are working in US or UK projects, right? System time will be different. So system time will be depends on the server where it is implemented or where it is installed, right? That time it will use, not your local time. Okay. Now scroll down. Host data. Host data nothing but application server. Yesterday we have seen the architecture, right? System architecture. So this is the GUI. Now whatever we are using, it is a presentation layer, right? Currently which layer we are using
Presentation
to
layer.
access different transaction codes? Presentation layer, right? What about the application layer? Application layer is installed on which operating system?
Linux.
Linux. This is the server instance. It might be installed somewhere, not in our system, right? We are accessing these application programs which are available in application server using GUI, presentation layer, right? Now observe the database. What is the database it is using? HDB. HDB is nothing but a HANA database. Okay, HANA database. So I told you, right? S4 HANA is a database dependent ERP. What is the database it uses? SAP HANA. Okay, we cannot use any other database servers for SAP S4 HANA. It is not database independent. Okay, clear? Is everyone clear? Now let's see.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now let's see what is ECC. Uh, we'll open ECC and check these details. Go to the logon pad, double click on ECC. You need to have a separate user ID and password for this. Login. Now go to here also you need to enter same. You need to enter the transaction codes SE38, SE11 to open that specific application. Go to system, status, host data. Observe host data. This is running on Windows
Windows.
NT server, right? This is application server. And what about the database server? They are using MS SQL, Microsoft SQL Server as a database, right? So ECC is a database independent. Depends on the customer requirements. They can choose the specific database. Okay. But in S4 HANA, there is no other option but need to use a HANA database. Okay. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Log off. Yes. So this is about the initial SAP screens. So in the next session, we're going to start implementing some basic programs and then creating database tables. So in any anyone familiar with any SQL programming?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
how to create a table in SQL?
Using there will be some keywords, sir, like
Using create table or something, right? Using
create
create
table.
table, table name, and we need to
Yes, sir.
provide the field names, primary keys. When we need to write some SQL syntax, right? SQL
Yes,
code,
sir.
right? To create the table. But here in SAP ABAP, you don't need to write any code to create the table. Just follow some navigations, right? Just by following some navigations, you can create the table. Okay? You don't need to write any manual SQL code. Okay? Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's about the today's session.